In this video, I'm going to provide strategies on how to forget someone. Some breakups can be liberating and very easy to navigate, while other breakups can be quite challenging, full of lots of different emotions like loneliness and sadness and self-doubt. And there are a lot of strategies on how to navigate this type of a breakup. And this doesn't just apply to your exes or your significant others. This could also apply to friends or even family. Oftentimes we grow apart. Maybe we were really good friends in college, but then they got a spouse or they had children or they got a new relationship, and so now your friend is no longer in communication with you. Or it could be they're just not into you anymore. So it's harsh to realize, but it's something that we're going to get to in this video. This video doesn't just apply to romantic exes or breakups with romantic exes. This could also apply to where you're finding that certain people that you care about, either your family members or perhaps friends, are distancing themselves from you. And it could be something totally not to do with you. It could be just that they've got a new partner of their own, or a new spouse, or they just had children, or they've moved, or they've got a career growth. Or it could be because it's due to you. Perhaps they just don't like you anymore as a human. And that can be really rough to recognize and to admit to yourself. And so we're going to talk about strategies on how to navigate this regardless of what the situation is. So the first strategy is a very important and hard rule to just stop contact. This is also one that I have struggled with the most in the past. Like I said, some breakups in my life have been liberating and easy to navigate, and the no contact was quite easy. But other relationships, I just found it really tough to stop communication. Whether it was them asking for communication and me saying, yeah, I think we can be friends, or me really not wanting to let go and me reaching out and trying to communicate. In either scenario, that wasn't helpful to moving on or to being present in this moment. Social media is a great way to stay connected to people. And so if you're trying to stop thinking about someone, social media is not a very good way to stop thinking about them. So one strategy is to temporarily unfollow them, or perhaps you disconnect with them, whatever it takes to just stop seeing them in your social media feed. I think that's kind of the strategy to stop thinking about them or to help forgetting them. For me, randomly, I have a birthday calendar of all the people close to me in my life, and I kept seeing a certain ex's birthday come up, and it kept making me want to contact that person. So ultimately I had to remove that birthday in order to stop having those thought patterns. The next one you'll see in almost any video on how to stop thinking about someone, how to forget someone, or how to follow through with a breakup, which is number 2, work on yourself. Right now is a golden opportunity to work on yourself. When you're in a relationship with someone and you don't feel good, or you don't feel right, or something's going on that's just not quite right, it's hard to know if it's you that's the problem. Maybe it's the person you're with who's the problem, or maybe it's this other thing called the relationship. So it's, when you don't feel right, it could be any of those 3 elements. And when you remove them from the equation, and so now you're on your own again, if there's anything not quite right, it's completely you. And if you don't enjoy being around you, what are the odds that anyone else is going to enjoy being around you? If you can't have fun being yourself in your own field, imagine what it's like to try to date you. So then it's their responsibility to bring you happiness. No one can really do that. So you're not really making it easy for people to be attracted to you. Whereas if you really like being you, then you start to become an attractive person to everyone around you. This means finding ways to get everything you need from yourself, and maybe still from people around you, but not a specific person. So if you need companionship of some sort, instead of relying on any one specific person, you can start realizing that, I just need companionship from time to time, and so you can rely on multiple people. So I think there's 4 huge advantages to being alone. So it's great to be in relationships, and I really like being a part of relationships. But when you have an opportunity to be alone, the first thing is your thoughts. You control all of your thoughts. when you're with someone, you're in dialogue with them a lot. And so they're putting your focus on whatever they're thinking about sometimes. So if they're reading the news about political discussions, or maybe they're reading about environmental issues, they're talking to you about what's important to them. And so you control still how you respond to their discussion, but you're not controlling what you're thinking about in those moments, because they kind of are. They're talking to you about stuff and it's causing your mind to focus on that stuff. Now when you're newly single, you have control of all of your thoughts again, which is wonderful. It's a great time to reconnect with what's important to you. Number 2 is activities. When you're dating someone, it's super fun to do activities together. At the same time, you're often doing activities that they might enjoy that maybe aren't as important to you, or the timing might be off. So you have to coordinate with them and do activities on their schedule. But now, when you're alone, you can do activities, whichever activities you want, when you want. And that's similar to my third one, which is eating. So I find that I put on a little weight on average when I date someone. And I think this is because when you're together, whenever they're eating, I think, oh, well, I'll just have a snack with them. And then if I'm eating, they eat with me, and maybe I eat a little more than usual because I'm focused on discussion with them. And when I'm alone, I tend to just eat what I want and when I want. And so I tend to find foods that are very healthy. I tend to eat just exactly the amount I want and exactly when I want. This is similar to the fourth one. A lot of us like distractions. I certainly like distractions. Distractions to me are things like TV, this video you're watching right now, movies, sports, recreation, like going swimming or hiking a mountain. So all these distractions are wonderful, and it's a great part of life, and I could find I can be present sometimes during a distraction. So just because I'm going hiking doesn't mean I'm distracting myself from my life. It means maybe I'm in the moment as I'm hiking. And so all these distractions that when you're single, you can pick what distractions you want when you want. When you're in a relationship, you're often doing stuff together. And so maybe you're in the work zone and you're getting something done, and they're like, hey, you want to go watch a movie? And you think, okay, I'll go watch a movie. And so suddenly you're distracted and you're doing something that wasn't what you wanted to be doing in that moment. And similarly, maybe you're in a zone where you want to be distracted, but they're getting something done that's important to them. And you say, hey, do you want to go to a movie? And then they join you. So this relationship, you end up creating a lot of distractions or succumbing to a lot of distractions that you don't necessarily when you're single. Another thing to recognize about working on yourself is that failure is the mother of all success. So if you're trying to get better at something, failing is a very important part of getting better at something. And so if you fail at a relationship, there's probably a lot you learned from that relationship. And so every relationship that I've been a part of, I feel like I've learned a ton. And I don't really think of any of my relationships as failures in the sense that, we couldn't work them out. We just went our separate ways for different reasons. But even if I did look at my former relationships as failures, each one of them was a huge learning process for me. So each one, I feel like I learned so much about myself and how I can be a better person within a relationship. And so instead of focusing so much on how the relationship failed, I can focus on how I can change as a human to be a better person to be in a relationship with. So again, it comes back to working on yourself as opposed to dedicating too much time and attention to thinking about this other person and this relationship you used to have. As some other people put it, it's how do I become present? How do I become in me in this moment rather than continuing to think about the past? Finally, I'll say this, a really common thing that I hear about a lot is people try to play the sympathy card. I think at the core of it is, if you really cared about me, you would try to help me in my time of need. And so let's say a boyfriend really didn't want to break up with his girlfriend and she just needs to get away from him. Then something he might do is say, oh my gosh, I'm so sick. I just really wish you could come here and take care of me. And all you're doing with the sympathy card is validating her feelings of wanting to leave you, because now you're just creating this needy person that they want to get away from even more. And so by working on yourself, you're doing the opposite of the sympathy card. instead of showing them, oh, I'm this weak, debilitated person, and if you cared about me, you'd come help me, which is not an attractive quality, you're working on yourself and you're making yourself a better person. And you know what? Maybe they'll actually want to get back together with you, and then you can assess whether that's right for you. Maybe you've outgrown that idea. By the time you've worked on yourself enough, you've outgrown the idea of wanting to get back together with them. If it's raw in the breakup, maybe you do want to get back together with them because you think they provided something that you need. But if you do enough self-work, you start to realize you enjoy yourself for who you are. And so then maybe they come back because they're attracted to that. But at this point, you're like, well, I like who I am and you didn't like who I am, so I'm gonna move on with my life. The third strategy on this list is my absolute favorite, and that is to use thinking about them as a trigger to do something better. What I mean by this is if you find yourself thinking about them, or if you find yourself thinking about the relationship, which if you're watching this video, that's probably happening. And so the moment you recognize, oh, I'm thinking about them again, you use that as a trigger to do something else. And what I like to do is have go-to thoughts in mind, or thoughts that I want to put in my mind. One thought you might put in your mind is, wow, I really like meeting new people. I'm looking forward to meeting someone new in the next week. Or think of the new people you've met in the last week. Or think something, don't take my thoughts. Like, what are the thoughts you want to be thinking about? What is the world you want to manifest? What is the world you want to create? And every time you're thinking about the person or the relationship with them, boom, that's a trigger. Oh, I'm thinking about this. Now I can put it in these replacement thoughts that I have ready to go. So spend a few minutes writing some thoughts down that you want to be thinking about. And then every time you think about them, boom, it's a trigger. You now are suddenly thinking about these other things. And another thing you can do, and I don't suggest doing this too much, but you can use it as a trigger to also think about some things that you didn't like about the relationship with them. So if there were certain qualities of them or the relationship that really bothered you, and that's why you ended up breaking up with them, remind yourself of those things. Because what happens is we often think all these wonderful thoughts about the good times, and that's great. I think that's fantastic. But if it's making us think about them too much and miss them and wanting to get back together with them, maybe now is a great time to remind ourselves, what are the things that I didn't like so much? And I don't recommend doing this too much. You don't want to create this toxic loop of constantly thinking all these negative thoughts about them. But at the same time, it does help you stop like, oh my gosh, I really want to get back together with them. Except, wait a second, there was these things that weren't quite right, so it's probably better that here I am now without them in my life. Other triggers, you can use it as a trigger to do 10 push-ups or go outside. So you're thinking about them and, oh, I'm just going to use this as an excuse to go outside and do something. Whatever you want to do to make your life better, use thinking about them as a trigger to doing that. And so then you're setting up this feedback loop that every time you think about them, you're doing something good for your life, which is fantastic because then the thoughts are helping you create the life you want. The fourth rule is to stop talking about them. And this is not a hard rule because it really depends on the situation. If you spent months and months and months talking about them with your friends and family because you were trying to break up with them, you've already done all the talking and you don't need to do it anymore. So just find ways to stop talking about them. When you're talking to your friends and family now, find ways to talk about your current experience or where you want to go next, or talk about them, find out what's going on in their life, but just find ways to stop talking about them. The reason I say this isn't a hard rule is if the breakup caught you by surprise, or let's say someone in your life died, and so it's kind of like a breakup, right? If someone died, you can no longer interact with them. Or maybe a friend got a new significant other, and so they're no longer communicating with you. So in those cases, it was a surprise to you, and maybe talking about them is really helpful. If you're talking to your friends, your family, or a therapist even, then you're trying to navigate your feelings about it. In navigating those feelings, you might find it very therapeutic and helpful to talk about them. So this is not a hard rule. It definitely depends on the situation. But if you've been doing a ton of talking about them, now is a great time to just stop talking about them, especially if you are saying really negative things about them, or if you're saying really negative things about yourself, or if you're saying really negative things about the relationship. In all three situations, if you're really talking in these negative ways, you're creating kind of this poison for yourself. And most people don't really want to hear it. I mean, a little gossip here and there can be fun. If someone's just hearing you talk about negative things, they're not going to be very attracted to you. It's going to be kind of a repulsive thing for that person. Number 5 is to tend to your social life. This could mean finding new friends, maybe through new activities. This could mean reconnecting with old friends that you really valued. This could mean just talking to your existing friends more. Just whatever it means to you to tend to your social life. Now is a great time, now that you are in this place where you're no longer having this person in your life that you used to spend a lot of time with. Now it's a chance to rekindle relationships that you have, or create new relationships with new people. Number 6 is to take your power back. If you're saying things like, "they broke my heart," you're giving them this power over you. The facts are, they didn't break your heart. Sure, they might have done some things, and now you're navigating this being you in this moment. But recognize the truth that you're the one breaking your own heart. And in some sense, it's a choice to break your own heart. So if you are continually thinking thoughts that cause you to have these really hard to experience feelings, there might be an addiction there. And yes, you can be addicted to things that don't feel good. So just because you're sad or lonely or heartbroken doesn't mean you're not addicted to those feelings. And sometimes we're so addicted to these feelings that we keep thinking about things that cause us to feel them. And we blame other people, but at some point you've got to realize the truth. Actually, you're the one. They're not in your life anymore, so you're the one who's continuing to break your own heart. And there's nothing wrong with that if that's part of your process. Certainly if someone dies, you're going to have a broken heart. And that's okay. It's okay to process experiencing sadness and loneliness and heartbrokenness. It's okay to feel. And so I'm not suggesting you stop feeling. What I am suggesting is to recognize that it's you who has power over things like a broken heart. And if you are needing to grieve, go ahead and grieve. At the same time, don't act like it's someone else who's breaking your heart. It's not them anymore. You've moved them out of your life, so now it's all on you. And if you want to have a better relationship with your feelings, recognize that you control that relationship with your feelings. No one else does. So if you're feeling heartbroken, recognize the truth that you control your own thoughts that might be helping you feel that heartbreak. And also, heartbreak's not a bad thing. If you're feeling heartbroken, maybe you're addicted to it. And maybe you're addicted to it because you're trying to create a better relationship to it. I made a whole separate video on how to create a better relationship with bad feelings, and this would be an example of that. So when you have heartbreak, it's not necessarily a bad thing, and heartbreak in some ways can be your friend. And also recognize that your words shape your reality. So if you're walking around telling everyone you're heartbroken, that's becoming your reality. You are a heartbroken person. Instead, you can say things like, "I'm a work in progress, and I'm learning a lot about myself right now. And I have a lot of feelings that I'm processing, and I have a lot of feelings I'm connecting with." Those are all true statements. And can you see how those are shaping a very different experience for you than saying things like, "Oh, I'm so sad, I'm so lonely, I'm so heartbroken about this." Those are shaping one reality. And, "Oh, I'm learning a lot about myself, and I'm processing a lot of different emotions right now." And that's creating potentially a different reality for you. The words you provide to other people, it provides kind of this feedback to you of kind of your self-view. And so words do really matter. And if you find yourself using words that are creating a life you don't want, just recognize that you can interrupt it and still be honest with yourself. Still use honest words that create kind of a better life experience for yourself. And that brings me to my 7th and final strategy, which is to be honest with yourself. And only rebound when you think you're ready. If you find that you're not enjoying your own company. And so you're just constantly trying to fill the void. You can't sit still for 10 minutes. You can't meditate for 10 minutes because you constantly are just, I've got to do something, or I need something. Imagine what that's like to be around. So I've been around people like that, and it's really tough because you almost feel responsible for their happiness. And I don't want to be responsible for anyone's happiness. And so if you are in that state where you're not happy when you're around yourself, then no one really wants to be responsible for your happiness, and you don't want to give them that power. If you make other people responsible for your happiness, you're setting yourself up for disaster, because then it's under someone else's control whether or not you're happy. So it's really helpful to get to a place where you recognize, wow, I'm happy on my own. And when you get to that point where you are happy on your own, then maybe it's time for a rebound. And science backs that, after 7 months, and there's nothing magic about 7 months, but for a study done on people who'd been broken up for 7 months, that people who did a rebound relationship fared better than people who didn't do a rebound relationship. So I'm not suggesting you rebound at the 7-month mark. Instead, I'm suggesting that, hey, there is a time and a place where a rebound can be beneficial. And certainly if you haven't done any self-work, a rebound is probably not a good choice. So if you're only a month into a breakup, a rebound is probably just going to fill that void temporarily, and you're going to be back in the same conundrum. If, however, you have done a lot of self-work and a year's gone by, or 7 months have gone by, or some amount of time has gone by, and you feel really good about who you are, then naturally you're probably going to attract people and find yourself open to being in a relationship again. Thank you for making it to the end of this video. If you enjoyed this video, please hit the like button. If you want more videos like this, hit subscribe and you'll see my new content. And as always, comments are super helpful because it helps me understand what people are getting out of these videos. Thanks very much.